Jake Morrison stood in the center of the massive courtroom. The walls were made of smooth metal that seemed to glow with its own light. 7 alien judges sat high above him on floating platforms. Each judge looked completely different from the others. The first judge was made of blue crystal. Light moved through her body like water. Her name was Veltar, and she was the leader of this court. Next to her sat a creature that looked like living gas inside a clear suit. The third judge was made of black rock with glowing red lines running through his body. Jake had been standing here for 3 hours. His lawyer, Amanda Cross, sat at a small table behind him. She kept looking through papers and shaking her head. Amanda was the only other human in this huge room filled with hundreds of aliens. "The court has made its decision," Veltar said. Her voice sounded like music made from breaking glass. "Jake Morrison of Earth, you have been found guilty of breaking the Galactic Preservation Act." The crowd of aliens began to whisper. Some made clicking sounds, others hummed in low tones. Jake could not understand their languages, but he knew they were talking about him. "I was saving people," Jake said loudly. "Those people would have died if I did nothing." "You changed the natural path of a developing world," the gas judge said. His voice came from speakers around his suit. "This is forbidden by galactic law." Jake remembered the planet Ketos 4. A huge volcano was about to explode. The people living near it had no idea what was coming. They had no technology to detect the danger. Jake had used his ship to warn them. He helped them move to safety before the volcano destroyed their city. 60,000 people are alive because of what I did, Jake said. "That is not the point," the rock judge said. His voice sounded like stones grinding together. "You broke our most important law. The punishment for this crime is clear." Amanda stood up quickly. "Your honors, my client acted to save lives. Surely there must be some consideration for his good intentions." "The law does not care about intentions," Veltar said. "It only cares about actions. Jake Morrison changed the course of a civilization. This cannot be ignored." Jake looked around the courtroom. Hundreds of alien eyes stared back at him. Some aliens had fur, others had scales. A few looked like they were made of metal, but all of them seemed to agree with the judges. "What is my punishment?" Jake asked. Veltar raised one crystal hand. The entire courtroom became silent. Even the small sounds of breathing and movement stopped. "Jake Morrison, you are sentenced to exile on your home world," she said. The courtroom exploded with noise. Aliens jumped up from their seats. Some screamed. Others made sounds that Jake had never heard before. Many aliens covered their eyes or turned away from him. Jake looked confused. "My home world? You mean Earth?" "Yes," Veltar said. The fear in her voice was clear. "You are sentenced to live the rest of your life on the Class 12 death world known as Earth." Amanda grabbed Jake's arm. "Your honors, this is cruel beyond measure. No being can survive on a Class 12 death world. You are essentially ordering his death." "The sentence has been given," the gas judge said. "It cannot be changed." Jake stared at the judges. He could not understand why everyone seemed so upset. Earth was his home. He had lived there for 35 years before joining the galactic community. "How long do I have?" Jake asked. "You will be transported to Earth in 48 hours, Veltar said. "May whatever gods you believe in have mercy on your soul." The rock judge leaned forward. "We have studied your world, human. The temperature changes will freeze your blood or boil it. The storms will tear you apart. The ground shakes and splits open without warning. No life can exist there for long." Jake almost smiled but stopped himself. These aliens had clearly never actually visited Earth. They seemed to think it was some kind of hell world where nothing could live. "I understand," Jake said simply. The gas judge shook his head sadly. "In all my years on this court, I have never seen such a terrible punishment given to any being. Your species must have incredible strength to produce someone willing to face such a fate with courage. Take the prisoner away, Veltar ordered. Two robot guards moved toward Jake. They were tall and silver with glowing blue eyes. Jake did not resist as they put energy chains around his hands. As he walked toward the exit, Jake heard aliens in the crowd talking in their own languages. He could not understand the words, but their tone was clear. They felt sorry for him. They thought he was going to die a horrible death. Amanda walked beside him. Jake, I will keep fighting this. There has to be something we can do. Do not worry about me, Jake said quietly. I will be fine. How can you say that? Amanda whispered. They are sending you to a world where the air itself is poison to most galactic species. Jake looked at her and winked. Trust me, Amanda. Earth is not what they think it is. The guards led Jake through long metal hallways. Other aliens they passed stopped and stared. Some made gestures that Jake guessed were prayers or blessings. A few young aliens started to cry. As they reached the detention area, Jake thought about his home. He pictured the blue skies and white clouds. He remembered the smell of rain on grass. He thought about snow-covered mountains and warm beaches. The aliens thought they were sending him to hell. Jake knew they were actually sending him home. Soon, the entire galaxy would learn just how wrong they were about Earth and the humans who lived there. The cell door closed behind him with a soft click. Jake sat on the simple bed and began to plan. In 48 hours, he would begin the most important mission of his life. He was going to show the galaxy what humans were really made of. Captain Jake Morrison stood outside the tall doors of the Galactic Council chamber. His dark blue uniform showed the wear of 30 years fighting wars for alien species. Behind him, Admiral Lisa Parker checked her tablet one last time. The numbers were clear. Humans had lost more soldiers in the past year than any other species had lost in the past decade. The chamber doors opened with a soft hiss. Inside, representatives from 43 different alien species sat in a giant circle. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of living crystal. A few breathed water instead of air and sat in special tanks. They all had one thing in common. They looked down on humans. Jake walked to the center of the room. His boots made loud sounds on the metal floor. The aliens stopped talking and stared at him. He had been here many times before, always to report on another human victory that saved alien lives. Veltar, the Zephyrian delegate, stood up. His crystal body caught the light and threw rainbows across the walls. Captain Morrison, he said in a voice like breaking glass, we need to discuss your recent actions in the Outer Rim. Jake's jaw got tight. For 6 months, human ships had fought pirate fleets near Zephyrian mining colonies. The pirates had killed thousands of alien workers and stolen tons of valuable ore. Human marines had boarded pirate ships in brutal close combat. Human pilots had died ramming their fighters into pirate cruisers to stop them from escaping. The pirates are gone, Jake said. Your people are safe. Your minds are working again. Yes, but your methods were too violent, said another alien. This one looked like a giant snake with arms. You destroyed 17 pirate ships completely. You could have captured them instead. Jake felt heat rise in his chest. Those pirates had killed over 3,000 of your people. They were not going to surrender. Perhaps, said a third alien with blue skin and 4 eyes. Humans are simply too primitive to understand civilized warfare. Admiral Parker stepped forward. She was shorter than Jake, but somehow seemed to fill the room with her presence. Civilized warfare, she asked. Is that what you call it when you sit here making speeches while my people die protecting yours? The snake-like alien made a hissing sound. Admiral Parker, please control your emotions. We are simply suggesting that human tactics need improvement. Parker pulled up a hologram from her tablet. It showed a list of numbers. In the past 5 years, humans have fought in 43 separate conflicts for council members. We have lost 8,000 soldiers. In the same time period, all other council species combined have lost fewer than 200. The numbers hung in the air like an accusation. Some of the aliens shifted in their seats. Others looked away. Veltar spoke again. We appreciate human sacrifice, but your aggressive nature concerns us. Perhaps it is time for humans to take a smaller role in council military operations. That was when Jake snapped. Smaller role? We are the only reason half of you are still alive. When the Void Syndicate attacked the Hive worlds, who stopped them? When the Flame Bearers tried to burn out the Depths Dweller cities, who fought them back? When raiders hit the trade routes, who hunts them down? Humans, Admiral Parker said quietly. Always humans. The council chamber fell silent. Jake could hear the hum of the air recyclers and the soft bubbling from the water tanks. A tall, thin alien with gray skin stood up. This was Chairman Thexmore, the leader of the entire council. Captain Morrison, Admiral Parker, we understand your frustration. But the council has voted. We are formally censuring humanity for excessive use of force in the Outer Rim campaign. Jake stared at him. Censuring us? Yes, this will be noted in your permanent record. Future human military actions will require pre-approval from this council. Admiral Parker laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Pre-approval? So the next time pirates attack, we have to ask permission to shoot back. If necessary, yes. Parker closed her tablet with a sharp snap. The sound echoed in the large chamber. Chairman Thexmore, members of the council, I want to make sure I understand this correctly. You are punishing us for saving lives too efficiently? Are asking you to consider less violent solutions. While at the same time, Parker continued, you have 3 new requests for human military aid sitting in my inbox. The Skyborn want us to deal with smugglers in their territory. The Crystal Confederation needs help with rebels on their outer worlds. The Hive Queens are asking for human guards for their new trade routes. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every alien who would look back. So you want to punish us and ask for our help at the same time? Chairman Thexmore's gray skin darkened slightly. The Council's decisions are final, Admiral. Parker nodded slowly. Yes, they are. She turned to Jake. Captain Morrison, please send a message to all human forces in Council space. Jake pulled out his communicator. Yes, Admiral? Effective immediately, all human military assets are withdrawn from Council operations. Every human ship, every human soldier, every human base, we are going home. The chamber exploded with noise. Aliens started shouting in dozens of different languages. Some stood up so fast they knocked over their chairs. Others made sounds like angry animals. Chairman Thexmore held up his hands for quiet. Admiral Parker, surely you do not mean this. The Council needs human military support. The Council just voted to censure us for providing that support, Parker replied. Clearly you can handle your own problems from now on. Veltar's crystal body was flashing bright red, a sign of extreme anger among his people. You cannot simply leave. You have obligations to the Council. Our only obligation was to help maintain galactic peace, Jake said. But since our methods are too violent for civilized species, you won't need our help anymore. Admiral Parker was already walking toward the door. Good luck with your next pirate attack, Veltar. I'm sure your superior civilization will find a peaceful solution. Jake followed her out. Behind them, the council chamber filled with angry voices and desperate pleas. For the first time in galactic history, a member species was walking away from the council by choice. As the doors closed behind them, Parker looked at Jake. Send the withdrawal order to all commands. Bring everyone home. All of them, Admiral. Every last human. Let's see how well the galaxy runs without us. 2 days after Admiral Parker walked out of the council chamber, the first reports started coming in. Colonel Amy Brooks sat in the command center on Luna Station, watching as red warning lights filled the tactical display. Each light meant trouble somewhere in the galaxy. "Colonel," said Lieutenant Tony Richards, looking up from his console, "we're getting distress calls from the Outer Rim. Pirate fleets are hitting the mining colonies again." Amy nodded, but did not give any orders. "Noted in the log. Send a copy to Earth Command." "Should we respond, ma'am?" "Negative. Those are not our colonies anymore." On Earth, President Dan Collins stood before a crowd of reporters in the White House press room. Camera lights flashed as he stepped up to the podium. The question started before he could speak. "Mr. President, is it true that all human forces are withdrawing from Council space?" Collins raised his hand for quiet. "Yes, it is true. As of this morning, I have ordered the complete withdrawal of all human military assets from Galactic Council. Operations." A reporter in the front row stood up. "Sir, what about our allies? What about the peace we've maintained for 30 years? "Our allies?" Collins asked. "You mean the species that just voted to punish us for protecting them? Let me be clear. For 3 decades, human men and women have died protecting alien worlds. We have spent trillions of dollars and lost thousands of lives maintaining galactic shit's peace. In return, we have been called primitive, violent, and uncivilized." He paused and looked directly into the main camera. "No more. From today forward, humanity focuses on humanity. We will defend our own worlds and our own people. The galaxy can solve its own problems." Across human space, the withdrawal was already beginning. Captain Ryan Brooks commanded a supply convoy heading home from the Andromeda sector. His ships were loaded with equipment that had been protecting alien worlds for years. "Captain," said his communications officer, "we're receiving messages from the Hive worlds. They're asking when the next supply run will arrive." Ryan checked his navigation display. They were still 2 days from human space. "Tell them there won't be a next supply run. They can handle their own logistics now." The Hive worlds had always been proud of their efficiency. The insect-like aliens organized everything in perfect detail, but their organization depended on human cargo ships bringing them raw materials from across the galaxy. Without those ships, their perfect system started to break down. Queen Zixara stood in her throne room, surrounded by worker drones carrying reports of empty warehouses and stopped production lines. For years, she had barely noticed the human ships that kept her worlds running. Now their absence was impossible to ignore. "How long can our food supplies last?" she asked her chief administrator. 6 weeks, Your Majesty. Maybe 8 if we reduce rations." The Queen's compound eyes turned toward the star charts on the wall. Human trade routes were marked in blue. Those lines connected every major system in the galaxy. Now they were all turning dark. Meanwhile, in Council space, the first major crisis was already developing. The Flame Bearers, a warrior species known for their aggression, had always been kept in check by human peacekeepers. Without humans watching them, they decided to settle an old dispute with the aquatic depths dwellers. Fleet Commander Pyrax led 50 Flamebearer warships toward the waterworld of Aquatica Prime. His species believed that strength was the only law that mattered. For years, humans had been strong enough to make him follow Council rules. Now the humans were gone. "Commander," said his tactical officer, "the depths dwellers are broadcasting surrender terms." Pyrax showed his sharp teeth in a smile. "Ignore them. We take what we want." The attack began at dawn, Aquatica time. Flame-bearer ships rained fire from orbit while landing craft hit the ocean cities. The depths dwellers sent desperate messages to the Council, begging for help. Chairman Thex Moore received the emergency reports in his office on the Council station. His gray hands shook as he read about civilian casualties and burning cities. For 30 years, humans would have already been on their way to stop the attack. Now there was no one to call. "Sir," said his aide, "should we send our own peacekeeping force?" Thexmore looked at the military reports. The Council had 12 ships available for immediate deployment. The Flame Bearers had 50, all better armed, and with more experienced crews. "Send a diplomatic protest," he said finally. "Demand they stop the attack immediately." His aide's face showed what he thought of that plan, but he said nothing. Back on Earth, Admiral Parker was in her new office in Pentagon West, the building constructed specifically for humanity's expanded military. Banks of screens showed the chaos spreading across the galaxy. Her staff watched with mixed feelings as the civilization they had protected for decades started to fall apart. "Admiral," said General Kate Morrison, Jake's sister, "we're getting requests for help from 17 different systems. They're offering to pay us directly, outside of Council authority." Parker studied the tactical displays. "Payment offers? Triple the standard rates for convoy escort, 5 times normal for peacekeeping operations. The Skyborn are offering their entire platinum reserves for one human battle group." "Interesting," Parker said. 2 days ago, we were too violent to work with. Now they want to hire us as mercenaries." "What are your orders, Admiral?" Parker was quiet for a long moment. On the screens, she could see human colonies thriving under their new isolation. Without the burden of protecting alien worlds, human fleets were free to focus on their own expansion. New colonies were being established. Trade between human worlds was booming. "Send the same message to all requests," she said finally. "Humanity is no longer available for military operations in Council space. We suggest they contact their local Council representative for assistance." General Morrison almost smiled. "Should we mention that most Council representatives are currently hiding in their embassies?" "That would be impolite," Parker replied. "Let them figure it out themselves." Across the galaxy, the reality was becoming clear. The Galactic Council had been a talking club backed up by human guns. Without those guns, their words meant nothing. Pirates who had stayed hidden for years came out in force. Criminal organizations started expanding their territory. Old grudges between species turned into shooting wars. On the trading world of Commerce Central, merchant ships from dozens of species sat in port. Their captains were afraid to leave without human escorts. The space lanes that had been safe for generations were now hunting grounds for raiders. Ambassador Claire Watson, humanity's former representative to the Council, sat in her apartment on Earth, reading message after message from alien diplomats. They all said the same thing in different ways. They needed help. They were sorry. They had made a mistake. She deleted each message without answering. 30 years of human sacrifice, and it had taken less than 48 hours for the galaxy to remember why they needed humans in the first place. The question was whether humanity would choose to remember why they had helped in the first place, or if some wounds were too deep to heal. The Void Syndicate's siege of the Council Station entered its 3rd month. Inside the station, food was running low, and the shields were failing. Krazak's fleet had grown to over 300 ships as more criminals joined what looked like a winning side. On Earth, President Dan Collins sat in the Oval Office reading reports that made him sick to his stomach. The Zephyrian homeworld had fallen to internal revolution. Without human peacekeepers, their society had torn itself apart. Veltar, the delegate who had started this crisis, was now a refugee fleeing his own people. "Mr. President," said his chief of staff, "we've received a formal message from the Galactic Council. It's addressed to you personally." Collins took the tablet and read the message. It was signed by representatives of all 43 Council species, including those who had voted to censure humanity. "We were wrong," the message began. "We treated humanity as servants when you were partners. We called you violent when you were protectors. We criticized your methods while ignoring your sacrifices. We formally apologize for our actions and humbly request your aid in our darkest hour." Collins set down the tablet and looked out the window at the rose garden. A year ago, such a message would have felt like victory. Now it just felt sad. His Secretary of Defense entered the office. "Sir," Admiral Parker is requesting an immediate meeting. She says it's urgent. The meeting took place in the Pentagon Situation Room. Admiral Parker stood before a holographic display showing the siege of the Council Station. The criminal fleet had grown even larger while they debated. "Mr. President," Parker said, "we've intercepted syndicate communications. Krazak plans to execute the entire Council leadership tomorrow. He's going to broadcast it across the galaxy as a warning to anyone who might resist him." Collins studied the tactical display. "What would it take to stop him?" "A full battle group could break the siege in 6 hours. But, sir, we'd be doing this for people who spent a year calling us barbaric murderers. And if we don't act, galactic civilization ends. The Syndicate becomes the dominant power in known space. Within 5 years, they'll be strong enough to threaten human colonies." The president was quiet for a long moment. "Admiral, I want you to assemble your senior staff. I need to ask them something." An hour later, the Pentagon Situation Room was filled with humanity's finest military leaders. President Collins looked around the table at men and women who had spent their careers protecting alien worlds. "I have a simple question," he said. "The aliens who are about to die tomorrow spent the last year telling the galaxy that humans are too violent to be trusted. They censured us for protecting them too effectively. They treated us like useful barbarians instead of allies. Given all that, why should we save them?" Captain Jake Morrison spoke first. "Sir, with respect, we shouldn't. They made their choice when they decided our methods were too violent. Let them face the consequences." "That's one perspective," Collins said. "Anyone else?" Admiral Parker leaned forward. "Mr. President, I've been thinking about something Dr. Martinez said. The galaxy is watching us. If we let the Council die, we prove that humans only help when it benefits us. If we save them despite how they treated us, we prove something else entirely." "Which is?" "That we're better than they are." General Kate Morrison shook her head. "Admiral, with respect, being better than them won't bring back the 8,000 soldiers we lost protecting their ungrateful worlds." "No, it won't," Parker agreed. "But those soldiers didn't die for alien approval. They died because they believed protecting innocent people was the right thing to do. That belief doesn't change just because some politicians were ungrateful." The debate continued for 2 hours. Every argument that could be made was made. Some officers wanted revenge for years of insults and ingratitude. Others believed that saving the Council was humanity's duty regardless of how they had been treated. Finally, President Collins called for a vote. "All in favor of military intervention to save the Council?" 23 hands went up. 15 voted against. The room was divided almost exactly in half. Collins nodded slowly. "Admiral Parker, the decision is yours. You know these people better than anyone. You've worked with them for 30 years. Do we save them or let them die?" Parker stood up and walked to the holographic display. She studied the tactical situation one more time, then turned back to face the president. "Sir, I recommend we save them. Not because they deserve it, but because saving people is what humans do. It's who we are. Even after everything they've done to us? Especially after everything they've done to us. If we only help when it's easy or appreciated, we're no different from anyone else. But if we help when it's hard, when we've been wronged, when we get nothing in return, then we're something special." Collins made his decision. "Admiral, you have authorization for Operation Homecoming. Bring our people home and bring the Council with them." The human fleet that appeared at the Council Station 12 hours later was the largest force assembled in galactic history. 200 ships led by Admiral Parker herself in the flagship Destiny, Captain Tony Richards commanding. The Independence was the first to engage the Syndicate fleet. "All ships, this is Captain Richards. You are interfering with human operations. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Krazak's response came from his massive dreadnought. "Humans, you abandoned these cowards once. Why do you return?" To save them now? Admiral Parker's voice cut across all frequencies, broadcast throughout the system, because abandoning them was a lesson for them. Saving them is a lesson for us. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the Syndicate fleet was destroyed or scattered. Krazak himself died when his ship exploded rather than surrender. The criminal empire he had built collapsed in a single day. On the council station, Chairman Thex Moore stood in the docking bay as human Marines secured the area. His gray skin was pale from months of stress, but his eyes were clear. "Admiral Parker," he said as she removed her helmet, "we owe you a debt that can never be repaid." Parker looked at the alien leader who had let his pride nearly destroy galactic civilization. "Chairman, you don't owe us anything. We didn't do this for a debt." "Then why?" "Because someone had to. And sometimes being human means doing the right thing even when no one asks you to." The rebuilding took years. The Galactic Council was reformed with new rules that gave humanity an equal voice in all decisions. The species that had called humans primitive now openly acknowledged their debt to human sacrifice. But the real change was deeper than politics. The galaxy had learned what happened when humans walked away. They had seen the cost of taking human protection for granted. More importantly, humans had learned that their strength came not from alien approval, but from their own choice to protect those who could not protect themselves. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral, stood on the bridge of the new human flagship 5 years later. The galaxy was at peace again, but it was a different kind of peace, one built on mutual respect rather than convenient necessity. "Admiral," said his communications officer, "we're receiving a distress call from the Outer Rim. Looks like raiders are hitting the mining colonies again." Morrison smiled. "Plot a course and inform the fleet. Let's remind the galaxy why humans are worth keeping around." The human ships jumped to hyperspace, carrying with them the lesson that had taken a year of chaos to learn. Sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when to walk away, but sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when to come back. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, filled with species that didn't always appreciate those who protected them. But somewhere in that darkness, human ships patrolled the trade routes, human soldiers stood guard on distant worlds, and human captains answered distress calls from people who might never thank them. And that was exactly how humans liked it. The massive alien ship hung above New York City like a dark cloud. Its hull stretched for miles, blocking out the sun and casting shadows across the streets below. People stopped walking and pointed up at the sky. Car horns honked as drivers pulled over to stare. The ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built. Inside the United Nations building, President Lisa Parker sat at a long table with her top military advisors. The emergency meeting had been called 2 hours ago when the alien fleet first appeared. 12 ships now orbited Earth, each one the size of a city. General Tom Bradley stood near the window, watching the ship through the glass. His uniform was pressed and clean, but his face showed worry. "They've been scanning us for the past hour," he said. "No hostile moves yet, but their weapons are active." Captain Jake Morrison checked his watch. He commanded Earth's space defense program, though everyone knew their weapons were no match for alien technology. "Still no response to our radio signals," he reported. "Whatever they want, they're not talking." The door opened and Secretary of Defense Helen Carter walked in. She carried a tablet computer and looked tired. "We just got word from the other world leaders. The aliens sent the same message to every capital city on Earth." President Parker leaned forward. "What message?" Helen placed the tablet on the table and pressed play. A strange voice filled the room. It sounded mechanical, like a computer trying to speak human words. The accent was wrong and some words came out unclear. "People of Earth," the voice said. "We are the Galactic Council. We have watched your world for 300 years. Your species grows too fast. Your weapons become too strong. Your wars spread too far. This cannot continue. The recording paused for a moment, then continued. You will accept our terms. You will limit your technology. You will allow our ships to guard your world. You will follow our laws. If you refuse, we will destroy your cities. You have 72 hours to decide. The room fell silent. General Bradley turned away from the window. Captain Morrison stopped checking his tablet. President Parker stared at the device on the table. How many ships? She asked quietly. 12 in orbit, Helen answered. Each one carries enough firepower to level a continent. Our satellites detected more ships at the edge of the solar system, maybe 50 total. Captain Morrison spoke up. What do we know about their technology? Far beyond ours, General Bradley said. Their shields could stop our best missiles. Their weapons use energy beams that we can't even understand. If they wanted to attack, we couldn't stop them, President. Parker stood up and walked to the window. The alien ship blocked most of the sky above Manhattan. Tiny lights blinked along its surface. She could see smaller ships moving around it like insects. Have they done this before? She asked. Helen checked her tablet. Intelligence reports suggest yes. We've detected similar energy signatures from 12 other star systems over the past century. Each time, the signals stopped after a few days. Meaning, those civilizations either surrendered or were destroyed. The room grew quiet again. Outside, crowds gathered in the streets. News helicopters circled the alien ship, their cameras broadcasting the scene around the world. Military jets flew in formation nearby, but they looked like toys compared to the massive vessel. President Parker returned to her seat. What are our options? General Bradley pulled out a folder. Option 1, we surrender, accept their terms and hope they treat us fairly. Option 2, we fight and probably lose everything. Any chance we could win? Captain Morrison shook his head. Not with conventional weapons. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Our nuclear missiles couldn't penetrate their shields. Our space fighters would be destroyed before they got close. President Parker looked around the table. These were Earth's best military minds, and they all looked defeated. The alien ultimatum seemed impossible to refuse. What about the deep space program? She asked quietly. The others exchanged glances. General Bradley cleared his throat. That's classified above my level. Mine too, added Captain Morrison. President Parker nodded slowly. There were things about Earth's defenses that even her top advisors didn't know. Projects that had been running for decades in secret facilities. Programs that most world leaders had never heard about. I need to make some calls, she said. Schedule another meeting in 6 hours. And Tom, put our forces on high alert, but don't make any aggressive moves. As the meeting ended, President Parker remained seated. Through the window, the alien ship continued its silent watch over the city. Its presence felt like a threat and a promise of destruction. But something strange happened as she watched. Instead of fear, she felt a small smile cross her face. The aliens thought they knew everything about humanity. They had watched Earth for 3 centuries and believed they understood human capabilities. They were wrong. Hidden deep beneath the Colorado mountains, ancient systems began to wake up. Computers that had been waiting for this day started running programs written decades ago. Radio signals encrypted beyond alien understanding spread to secret facilities around the world. The aliens had given humanity 72 hours to surrender. They expected Earth to fall quickly, just like the other worlds they had conquered. What they didn't know was that Earth had been preparing for this moment since the first alien probe was detected 300 years ago. President Parker stood up and straightened her jacket. The real Earth Defense Force was about to show itself, and the aliens were in for a surprise they would never forget.